What's up, friends? Welcome back to the House Brewing Company YouTube channel, where today we are tasting the first 4 of 8 of your Hazy IPA homebrews. That's a party. The flavor profile is wild. Whoa! Here's how this is going to work. I thought it would be better if I only tasted 4 per video, picked a favorite from each of those batches of 4, and then pit those 2 against one another. So what we're gonna do is taste these 4, pick a favorite, make another video, taste those 4, pick a favorite, and make a third video, and crown a final winner. So you're gonna wanna get subscribed to the channel and leave your thoughts down below. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. This first set of submissions, we have beers from Denmark, Bellingham, Washington, and the United Kingdom. So geographically, we are representing homebrewers from across the globe in this first tasting. And without further ado, I'm gonna dive right into it. First beer is coming to us from Jared in Wisconsin.
My name is Jared Erikson. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I brewed this beer Rainbow Road on my stove and fermented in a little Big Mouth bubbler. Cheers.
I will say I didn't get to tasting these as fast as I would have liked to, but all that said, it's only been a couple of weeks. They should still be reasonably fresh. This first beer I'm a little conflicted on because, as is so often the case with hazy beer, they do tend to drop bright over time, some of the time. Some of the time we know why, other times it just happens and we will never figure out why. But I'm kind of conflicted on this first one because it's obviously settled out, but there's obviously a lot of sediment in the bottle. And I think I'm gonna give it a gentle swirl before I pour it to agitate some of that goodness back into solution and see if we get a little more haze into that beer. Now the stuff that's settled into the bottom doesn't appear to be super chunky. I'm curious to know which yeast was utilized here. It looks like Verdant IPA yeast was used, which is a pretty common, I think, in British brewing circles. But yeah, that actually stirs it back up. Sometimes you get this kind of, hop sediment, coagulated protein thing going on in the finished beer. I'm really glad that I gave that a rouse because once I did, it really becomes a beautiful hazy beer. So let's dive in. All right, first sample, Jared in Wisconsin. He's got Rainbow Road IPA. Beautiful, darker orange color, medium haziness. He states 62 IBUs and 8% alcohol. Nice billowing foam. He had definitely a lot of carbonation in this one, a little bit active coming out of the bottle, which is not unusual for a bottle conditioned hazy IPA. Personally, I wouldn't recommend bottle conditioning a hazy IPA. I think it can change the character of the beer post dry hop and sometimes actually hurt the aromatic qualities of it. So if it were me, I wouldn't particularly bottle condition a hazy beer, but you never know. That's just me. Wow, bright orange citrus on the nose. Really, really nice. I think Jared had told us that he used Verdant on this beer, and it doesn't smell like Verdant to me, which is interesting. Very complex hop profile, like stone fruit, citrus, mango. Nice on the nose. Whoa. Crazy flavor profile. Very citrusy, like very, very orange gummy, like almost, this sounds like it might be a detrimental term, but I don't think it actually is. It's almost like acidic. Has a very like real citrus, pulpy, intense orange note that's hitting really nice, to be honest. It's a very, very bright beer. It's not super soft. It's pretty coarse and pretty intense. Not a lot of bitterness. Great citrusy flavor. Solid nose. That's Jared from Wisconsin, sample number 1. Crazy, almost like vitamin C gummies. That's a wild flavor profile. Sample number 2 comes to us all the way from Denmark. Thomas submits Hazy Juice.
Hi, my name is Thomas from Denmark. My submission brew is called Hazy Juice, and the set beside me is the one I made it on.
And it looks awesome. This one too is bottle conditioned, 25 IBUs theoretically, I think, unless he measured it, and OG of 1078 and final gravity of 1013. I don't think we have any statements of yeast. Oh, this one's a little aggressive. We caught it though. Thus are the perils once again of bottle conditioning. Second sample in the tasting looks to be a little bit more on the yellow side. You know, the color of hazy IPA's been up for a lot of debate in recent years, where it seems like the more sought after ones here in 2024 are super, super pale yellow, bright, almost like white opacity, very, very milky type of beers. And those are awesome, but sometimes I think by not having that little bit of sweetness to back it up, you kind of minimize the level of juiciness that you can achieve by making a beer super, super pale yellow. But all that said, this is not that intensely pale yellow color. It's simply slightly more yellow than that first sample. Hazy juice on the nose. Ooh, got a little bit of pineapple. A little bit of byproduct in that, like, sometimes when you bottle condition, you get this kind of like phenolic note. And I'm assuming this one's been allowed to condition long enough, but I do wonder if it had more time to recondition, if that phenolic note would go away, or if that's just a re-fermentation flaw, which is known to happen. Yeah, a little bit of pineapple, mild citrus, mixed tropical fruit. Soft on the nose. These first two, I think when we tasted a few of the hazy IPAs in the original sampling, they were aggressively dry hopped. These kind of have like a soft, not aggressively dry hopped nose, which to me I quite like. Nice. See, this one has a little bit more malt coming forward than the first sample, which leads me to question whether or not it got a little bit of oxidation throughout the brewing process. Again, not a bad thing. Just lacking the brightness and punch of the first sample. I'm getting like mild stone fruit. I'm getting like a little bit of pineapple on the flavor profile. Again, very, very little bitterness through the first two samples. And again, a solid example of hazy style New England IPA. Moving on to sample number 3 from BKYD Brewery in Bellingham, Washington. This is Go Big Hazy IPA.
Hi, this is Mark Ronnie from Bellingham, Washington, brewing on my Blickman Compact.
Very cool, like Kool-Aid Man style label. Cheers for that. He's even got the government warning on there. I don't know. This might actually be a commercial beer that I'm not aware of, but BKYD Brewery, Go Big, cool label. Yeah, it's all labeled like it's an actual commercial brewery. I'll have to check that out. Not super hazy on the pour, not super milky, but a good mild translucency to it, which is another point worth making. I spoke briefly about the color of a hazy IPA, and sometimes the opacity of a hazy IPA can force people to judge it before they try it. In other words, kind of the milkier it looks, the greater the expectation of flavor and texture. And we've actually found in our trials that blindfolded, a lot of the times you actually can't tell the level of opacity when you're blindfolded. You can only tell when you're obviously looking at it. So don't let color and opacity affect your opinion of a beer until you try it objectively. Citrusy, a little bit yeasty on the nose. I can't pick up, I'd be lying if I could tell you the yeast character that I'm picking up here. This one almost very clean, almost Chico-like, or maybe like London Ale. Wow, another really bright, juicy beer with minimal bitterness. More sweetness on this one than the first sample. This one's like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's a good punch of citrus on the front, and then in the back end, it gets kind of like this, like, I don't know, candied sweetness. And I wish, in this style of beer, I kind of wish it was a little bit drier. But again, aromatically, this one's on the lighter side, but the flavor is very punchy with the citrus, similar to the first sample. Moving into sample number 4, called Perfume Ponce. This is coming from Johnny Sherbin of Sherbrew. He gives us his Instagram at Sherbrew, SHURBREW, from Sunderland, the UK.
Hi, my name's Johnny Sherbin. I'm from Sunderland, which is in the northeast of England, and this is my beer, Perfume Ponce. Hazy IPA at 6%, and this is my brewery.
I'm not in the homebrew land anymore, so I don't know, but this seems like a pretty cool way to package the beer. It's almost like a soda bottle. But this actually looks like a firm cap bottle that I used to use way back in the day. Cooper's Homebrew. Fill right to the brim. You love to see that. Oxidation is the enemy of Hazy IPA. Oxidation is the enemy of just about every beer, except for maybe barrel-aged beer or Russian Imperial Stout or barley wine. This beer falls on the color spectrum somewhere between the first and second sample today. Mild translucency again. None of these beers are super milky. They're all certainly hazy, but none of them really hit that overly milky, opaque, super milky 2024 hazy style IPA, which frankly I like. Ooh, this one has like a vanilla note on the nose. Almost comes across as like an oxidized citrus character. But yeah, it smells like almost like a vanilla Christmas cookie candle. Weird. Weird is not a negative term. It stands out. Nice. A lot of late hops in this beer. A lot of late hops, a lot of dry hops. I wish it had more kettle hops, more hops toward the beginning of the boil to give it more of a resinous, juicy, saturated character. But ultimately, the beer tastes pretty solid and has a nice rounded characteristic without too much bitterness. All right, so I'm gonna get a quick palate cleanser and move through the samples once again as I'm known to do, and then crown kind of the first bracket winner of this phase of part 1 of 3 of the Hazy IPA sampling. Jared from Wisconsin against Thomas from Denmark, against Mark from Bellington, Washington, against Johnny Sherbin from Sunderland, the United Kingdom. Who's it going to be? Going back through sample number 1. That's it's a confounding beer. It's like simultaneously I like it and dislike it at the same time. It's hard to explain. The flavor profile kind of goes from grassy and herbal in 1 second to like insanely bright, pulpy, acidic citrus in the next sip. But as it warmed up, it definitely evolved, definitely got a little more grassy and a little more aggressive. Hazy Juice, Thomas in Denmark. Pineapple-y, mango, simple. Go Big from Mark in Washington. And finally, Perfume Ponce from Johnny in Sunderland, UK. All right, I think based on the second sampling, I can reasonably pick. These are tough because they all have solid characteristics, and it's hard for me to say exactly which one. Like if I was going to take one of these and be like, oh, I want to clone this on a commercial scale, which one I think the public would like the most. I think that's a pretty good metric, right? Like if we were going to make this beer commercially and I had to select if I was director of brewing and the team brewed 4 beers for us and I had to pick a beer to scale. When I think about it like that, that might actually be, who knows? Because sometimes what the public will like is different from what I think an individual might like. But all these are fine examples of homebrew. I feel very, very grateful to have tried them. Very grateful that you guys submitted them for our consideration. In this sampling, again, it may be slightly controversial because I think the camera's picking up a little bit of translucency, and this beer appears to be the most translucent, and I'm not sure if it's actually a commercial beer, but Go Big from Mark in Bellingham, Washington is the beer that I think had the least oxidative character. It was the brightest. It was the easiest to drink. It had the nicest kind of candied hop finish and not any flaw that I could really detect. So in part 1 of the sampling, it's Mark in Bellingham, Washington, who was the very best beer of these 4. All right, so Jared, Thomas, Mark, and Johnny, deeply in your debt. Thank you for sending me your beers and thank you for entrusting me to give you feedback on them. This is the first of 2 parts. We'll be pitting Mark against the winner of part 2 in part 3. So get subscribed, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll see you in the next one.